Two by-election defeats and the surprise resignation of his party chairman. But it doesn't seem to have fazed the Prime Minister, despite his rather cheerful admission yesterday that he had stuffed up. However, it may well reignite chatter among some Conservative MPs about Mr Johnson's leadership. Joining me now is the Conservative commentator Tim Montgomerie. Good morning, Tim.
Morning, Trevor.
Boris Johnson said yesterday that he didn't think that there was much chance that he'd be changing his behaviour anytime soon, or indeed his psychology. Well, you've worked for him and with him and you know him. Do you agree with his self-assessment?
I'm afraid I do think that he seems pretty committed to carrying on as he has done for quite a while. You mentioned, Trevor, that I worked for him very briefly, and it was very briefly. It was just before the 2019 election and just afterwards. And I saw in the brief time that I was working for him an awful lot of dysfunction in Downing Street, a lack of structure, a lack of direction. And I suggested to him, put a proposal to him that he brought in a former White House chief of staff or someone who'd run the Australian Prime Minister's office to carry out a wide sort of spread review of how his Downing Street was run, to get ahead of the problems that I could see coming. And he simply wasn't interested in that sort of reorganisation. I think he thrived on chaos in some ways as a child, and he still likes really some sort of chaos around him, really. It allows him to rise above it. And so I'm afraid I don't really see any great potential for a serious change of course.
So you were basically saying this is the nature of the beast, and I think you now regard him pretty much as an albatross around the neck of the Conservative Party. Do you think there's anything that can be done to get that albatross to drop? I mean, rather, prayer and repentance are clearly not going to be on offer here, are they?
I think the Conservative Party will get rid of the Prime Minister before the general election. I was surprised by the scale of the rebellion in the vote of no confidence that took place, I think, about 2 weeks ago. But the thing that surprised me more was, as I went round Westminster, the Westminster Village, around the Houses of Parliament in the days afterwards, the number of Tory MPs who came up to me or I had a cup of tea with, who'd voted for Boris Johnson in that leadership election, who were nonetheless determined in due course to oust him. Now, some of them had supported him because they weren't aware that they were still waiting for a credible alternative to emerge, which is a huge question. Others are fully aware. You've just had a very interesting discussion with a union leader who is determined to bring chaos, really, to Britain, as other union leaders are. I think a lot of Tory MPs are aware that these next 9 to 12 months are going to be difficult. They don't want the new leader to have to be in place during that period. Better to get the new leader in after then. And so at some point, because of a variety of reasons, Tory MPs will get rid of him. They just weren't sure a couple of weeks ago was the right time to do so.
You mentioned there the obstacle in many people's minds that there doesn't appear to be an obvious successor. Can you see one?
I can see a number of candidates that would be good prime ministers. And I think nearly all of the candidates...
Can you name one or two?
Happily, I would think that Sajid Javid would bring competence to the job. I think Nadim Zahawi would bring great unity to the job. I think Tom Tugendhat would bring a clarity on foreign and security policy. I think all of them, all of the main candidates would bring a sort of sense of direction and unity and moral sort of leadership. What they have to convince all of us is to give more detail, show that they have a team around them, because what the Conservative Party can't risk is going from one failed leader to one who isn't ready. And so there needs to be mechanisms in the party over the coming months to test the possible candidates and ask some searching questions. And we all know, Trevor, that behind the scenes, they are all manoeuvring. And I think it's time that they're a little bit public about it, but more public about it, so that they can be held accountable and we can ask them the sort of questions that we need to find out if they're ready.
Tim, thank you so much. And I hope that between us we haven't wrecked anybody's chances by naming them. But anyway, we shall see.